Sitting between the Biobío River and the Nuble River, the town of Chillan is mostly renowned for a history embedded with earthquakes and a pretty impressive and lively open-air market right there in the center of town. But just outside of town, there's a collection of thermal springs known as Las Termas and the Chillan volcano. Hiking up the volcano, you get that lovely odor of sulfur as you approach the pass. The volcano gives some incredible views of the Andes, and I can only picture what the ski mountain must look like, covered in some fresh powder. Some fresh pow-pow. Right now, we're on top of one of the summits in the hot springs of Chillan. Behind me, you can see there is a volcano of Chillan, 1,600 meters high. And as much as I'd like to stay here, I think it's time to get back down and check out the farms. When I first heard the term gap, I must have given a pretty confused look like, gap? What was that? Trying to figure out a little more about what exactly is meant by good agriculture practices, GAP, I took to the internet, which, not surprisingly, gave me a bit more information than I really knew what to do with. It's just that the term has a long list of standards and definitions, so I looked at sites from organizations like the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, U.S. governmental entities like the Food and Drug Administration, European non-governmental entities like LEAF, and a North American certifier, Primus Labs. So at the end of the day, after reading a pretty sizable amount of good agriculture practice protocols, I came to the conclusion GAP really boils down to nothing more than good common sense, farm safety, and a wholesome end product for the consumer. One of the biggest threats GAP helps protect against are the foodborne illnesses that we've heard so much about in the news over the past couple years. They're the outbreaks that are spreading worldwide and inflicting huge numbers of people. I mean, in the past year or so, we've seen contaminated tomatoes, jalapenos, peanuts, spinach, and milk, just to name a few. Good agriculture practices are just one part in helping bring our food supply under control. Let's take some control. So as I was traveling around, visiting farms, and talking with a bunch of Chilean farmers, I got this impression that a huge shift in good agriculture practices has come about over the past decade here in Chile. Visiting these farms has certainly opened up my eyes to the agricultural standards in the country. There's also been a great chance to see GAP in practice, checking out appropriate hygiene on farms, looking at responsible chemical application and storage, and seeing some comprehensive training programs. Now let's look at these a bit closer. Right now we're going to check out the bathroom, making sure they've got toilet paper, a garbage can, running water. Right there we've got toilet paper, in the corner a garbage can, and certainly running water. Awesome. For pretty obvious reasons, hand washing around the bathrooms is crucial. Workers adhering to these sanitary practices help maintain that safe end product we're looking for. It's as simple as washing your hands before you eat a meal, which my mother has burned into my head.
Ian, remember to wash your hands.
Also, because eating around the farm is strictly prohibited, we want to make sure a clean eating area is available. We definitely don't want to attract any unwanted pests or rodents that would love to contaminate that harvested product. So from the designated eating area, we're going to take a walk over to the bodega, which is the storage shed for used and unused chemical containers. This means things like pesticides, fertilizers, fungicides, stuff like that. The containers should be locked up above an impermeable floor just to make sure the chemicals aren't going to leak into the ground. Chemical application equipment was also kept in there. Some of these quote-unquote sheds were awesome. There was a 55-gallon drum with a hinged door attached, and then an old-school refrigerator. And yeah, both were up to GAP standards. I think ingenuity has got to be a prerequisite to be a farmer down here. Going around, I got to see the Chilean buyer and exporter Frutícola Onway hosting harvester training courses where GAP standards and other farm improvements are taught. And yeah, these take place right there on the farm. The Chilean government agency Corfo helps pay for these classes, basically just to make sure the GAP is actually being practiced, which is a pretty sensible initiative on the part of the government if Chile wants to keep their reputation as a safe producer and exporter. To me, these training classes show the continued improvement of an advancing agriculture system in the country, with emphasis on staying informed and up with the times. In my opinion, I feel as though Chile not only meets international standards in terms of GAP, but in fact surpasses a lot of these expectations. Since 2003, Almway has certified over 250 farms with the Good Agriculture Practices protocol created by Primus Labs, and this season there's another 50 farms that are incorporated within this program.
So this growing presence of good agricultural practices in Chile really provides a solid foundation for which more intense initiatives like sustainable agriculture can be built up from. This is El Gravito signing off.
For a dime, I'm making my living, feed my children.